Hello! Today I want to share a bit about my spiritual journey and some best practices that have kept me grounded, playful, and want to live my life. These are practices that have worked for me, so I want to share my story and my perspective. I don't expect them to work for you, but if they're helpful, do let me know what resonates with you. For me, my spirituality has evolved from new age practices that used to be really trendy, and some still are, as well as manifestation practices that you see on social media, to finding joy in the small mundane moments and eventually reaching a very centered, neutral perspective on the day-to-day life, on my relationships, on my identity, my role. And overall, it has taught me to let go of things easier, as well as accept me and accept who I am and the way that I move through this world. So, to give a bit of background of myself and where I came from, I grew up moving around a lot. I was born in China, lived there for about 8 years, and my Chinese family was never super religious or anything, so I wasn't really exposed to a lot of traditions that centered around spirituality or religion. What grounded my family the most was cooking, was being with family, providing the day-to-day like necessities that we needed to live with, and it just didn't seem like religion or spirituality was ever a priority, really. So that really taught me a lot about, I think, how to value my philosophy and my ideology, and for a long time it was definitely on the back burner. It wasn't something that was really important to live through and live with. And later on, when my mom met my stepdad, I moved to America, and he was raised very Christian, so I did go to church a little bit in the South in Florida, and that experience was very disorienting as well as mind opening for me. I was just not connected with the way that they portrayed God and religion at all. For me, that was like, especially seeing the lack of diversity and the lack of representation of like me, I just could not connect with what I saw in that environment. And that's totally fine. And it's not like they really pushed it onto me too hard. It was definitely a choice. So I think given that freedom of value and freedom of religion, I definitely didn't feel like there was a lot of trauma surrounding that. But on the other hand, without this anchor, without this root that centered who I am, especially growing up as like an immigrant and going through all these different identities, I had a lot of periods of immense sadness and despair and just going through the pits of darkness, like feeling really, really lost and confused about who I was, and not knowing like why I'm here. I constantly questioned my worth. I constantly questioned my voice. I was so hesitant about everything that I thought about because I didn't know if they were worthy of attention or worthy of praise or love or adoration, and there was just so much insecurity. I had this desire, which I feel like a lot of kids do, of breaking out of the monotony of going to class every day, going to school. I dreamt of adventure constantly, of saving the world, and just traveling and exploring. And this desire for freedom, I didn't feel like I had the room to explore that potential, to embody the free spirit that I thought I was. Really much in Florida, growing up in the suburbs. And when I was pulled into this world, this new world that was different from the one I had grew up with, this lack of familiarity was just so dissociating for me that I really did not know who I was for so long, having to learn new language, about English, about Western culture, about pop culture, and being influenced by so many beauty standards and identity crises at the time, especially in media. There was just really like so much uncertainty of who I was, even though I knew like what I cared about, but I didn't know that like that was the core of who I was. Slowly, around the time of 2018/2020, I discovered New Age spirituality, mainly through TikTok. I learned about manifestation techniques, and I dived into them for a bit, and then eventually I found out about this book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I've talked about on this channel previously. And I literally stumbled upon this book on Twitter, just not knowing like really what it was, but I saw screenshots of the content, and it really intrigued me because I've always been a believer of magic, and I've always known that alchemy was real. I just couldn't really put the words into that. And so I started reading the book, I started meditating, and I would meditate for probably like 30 minutes to an hour every single day, sometimes longer, just trying to understand the processes that went through my mind. And most of my meditations really centered around love and community, just this idea that when I felt the love in my body, it was like I was being connected to the love that was already existent in this world. And days turned into weeks, which turned into months. And this practice eventually became a ritual that I would return to, which also influenced other parts of my life. And I slowed down, I became more attentive. And even though there were days where I was still going back to my addictive behaviors or going back to unhealthy patterns and relationships, returning and being able to return to this meditation practice slowly cleared the fog in my mind around who I was, that doubt and that confusion. And at the same time, I was investing time into a lot of other self-development, personal development content, books, and materials. And last year I learned about hypnosis, which also became a very integral practice in my spirituality. And through it, I was able to open up a portal in my mind, a portal of sorts, that reminded me of the potential I had, as well as my ability to accept this potential and befriend it instead of being afraid of it. In the past, especially the last 3 years when I was living alone in Boston, I would spend so much time isolating myself painting. And a lot of that pain, it was trying to alchemize the pain I had, a lot of the painting. But there was still this like gate around me and these walls that I kept putting up because I was so scared of making a mistake in painting, which like I feel like if I said that nowadays, like I would laugh because if you make a mistake, just paint over it, right? But then I discovered pole dancing, and I added pole dancing to my life because the yoga that I was doing for a couple years just didn't really feel like they were connecting me enough to myself. And slowly, with pole dancing, with painting, with journaling, which I've been doing for probably 4 years at this point, I started to understand that there was a picture of myself that I could curate, that I could see clearly and honestly and compassionately accept with no hesitation. And that's still a process I'm learning every day. It's definitely hard. I don't know that anybody can accept themselves 100% because we're all human, we're all sensitive. And there are still a lot of moments where when I'm out in public surrounded by people or friends that I'm not really close with, I may hesitate to share my full self, for fear of being judged, for my values, for who I am. But I've learned two main things through my spirituality. One is that it's up to us to create safety in our bodies first. And two, without self-acceptance, there cannot be change and growth. These two things, I think, set the foundation for the rest of my spiritual ideology. I had learned that to carry my own spirituality, I needed to abandon what was mainstream and what was working for other people. I couldn't just journal affirmations like 5 times a day or repeat thoughts just because somebody else did that and it worked for them. For me, I needed a deeper, a more genuine emotional feeling to the way that I was living my life, not just like taking 10 minutes to journal or to recite some words and then going back to my old patterns. It was like this entire uprooting of how I viewed myself, like completely. It was a complete letting go and shedding of how I thought the world worked, how I thought I showed up in the world, and my worth and value. And the root of it was, how much did I believe I was worthy of love and attention? I feel like there's so much stigma around attention. If you see somebody who's starting a new hobby or pursuit, some people may judge them and say, oh, I think they're trying too hard. But isn't it better to put in the effort than not try at all? And isn't it better to devote yourself to things that you love and things that give you life, and pay attention to what is worthy of love? And that includes yourself, that includes how you take care of your body, how I wake up in the morning and try not to go on social media, the thoughts that go through my head when I talk to myself, how I show up in conversations with people. Am I talking about other people, or am I talking about my desires, dreams, and hopes, and what's been lighting me up inside? Am I really doing the practices that ground me to this land that I'm in, wherever I am, and sensing the movements, the flow of energy through my body? Oftentimes, we seek so much of what is outside of us to fulfill us, whether that is relationships, money, status, travel, anything. And what I found in my experience is when I've obtained that job that I want, when I've obtained the college degree, the friendship, the items, the material pursuits, that doesn't really completely fill the hole that was originally there. That hole, I found, is actually fulfilled when I start creating, when I start ideating, coming up with stories, ideas, paintings, movements, dance, videos. And it's so funny because you would think that to fill a hole, a metaphorical hole, you would put more things inside it, right? Like literally. But what you're actually doing is you're mending the hole by creating it within you. You can only put things into the hole with like the same land that it came from, with the same soil that it was created in. So how can you expect to fill a hole in your heart with the car when that hole wasn't there in the first place because of a lack of a car, right? I mean, this is like completely situational too, like, but generally our need for validation and approval is a reflection of this internal desire to be seen and to ultimately express ourselves. And the more that I've practiced courage to express myself through spirituality, praying, I think, is another method. Praying and speaking to the land and practicing all of these mediums, the more true and grounded I felt to be in my body. I've started to look at spirituality as more of a craft, a ritual, and a devotion more than anything else. It's not just a separate part of my life, like going to church on Sunday and not practicing parts of it outside of church. You know, and I'm sure a lot of people go to church every week and still practice their religion outside of church. It's in the small things. It's like how I speak to my mom. It's how I'm curious about my friends. How I create a night routine so I can go to bed early, so I can have an early morning routine. It's how I carve out time in my day to create, no matter how scared I am, no matter what expectations I might have of the end result, and no matter where I believe my abilities are. I cannot be the one to hold myself back, because if I am, then who will do the thing that I want to do? Like, who will do it the way that I want to do it, right? And some things I've learned to not do, which I share a little bit about, is don't try to stick to a regime if it doesn't feel right. I used to ask myself, how do I know this is working for me? Like, how do I know if this is what I'm supposed to do? How do I know if it feels right? And it sounds cliche, but only you know what feels right for you. Some signs that have taught me what feels right mainly came through experimentation. When I experimented with different mediums, I would see what sustains my attention. what really pulled me in deeper and what challenged me, but what was fun at the same time. When you keep showing up every single day to one pursuit, whether that is journaling, dancing, moving your body, or painting, or knitting, whatever it is, cooking, when you show up frequently and regularly, you'll learn that your body has a way of picking up on your resourcefulness and developing your intuitive sense the way that you've always wanted to. And this only comes through practice. Externally, I was doing all these things. Internally, I was hypnotizing myself, which is really just a way of saying guided imagination. I like imagination more than meditation because guided imagination allows you to craft and develop your thoughts in a way that like connects you to unconditional love for yourself. I believe when you have unconditional love for yourself, you're able to give so much and provide so much value to the world inherently, because there's there's so much less fear, there's so much less doubt and anxiety. I firmly believe that spirituality teaches me to be willing to be open to different perspectives, to contradicting ideas, and to play with the challenges that life likes to throw your way. It reminds me that without the dark periods, there are no light periods, because if I just experience good and healthy life all the time, I wouldn't even know what the best of life is, because everything would just be mundanely normal. But it is the upsetting thoughts and situations that I experience that teach me the lessons I need to learn and the things that I can do to be better, grow, be more honest with myself, like truly be so vulnerably honest about where I'm at, and seek out resources to learn about where I want to be. The other thing that I forgot to mention, which is like such a big part of spirituality, I completely forgot to mention, is that like at the beginning, the book Becoming Supernatural, I highly recommend it, talks a lot about gratitude. And I would practice gratitude every single day. I still do. The first thing when I wake up in the morning, I would wake up and in my head I would recite, thank you, universe, for my health, thank you, universe, for my wealth, thank you for this life, thank you for this body. Not really like always in that exact order, but saying those words, knowing the power that language has, and creating that resonance the first thing I do when I wake up sets the tone really well. It's kind of like tuning the radio of my life, tuning the radio station of my life. Like, am I on the right channel when I am conscious, when I get out of bed? Am I moving the way that I want? Even on days when it was like really, really hard to see what I could be grateful for, like when I felt just like I had no money, I had no value to provide to the world, and I had no one that like really cared about me. On those days, appreciating what I already had helped so much. And journaling them down and just like moving my body, really doing something with my hands. I mean, we're humans, we have a body, we're meant to move this body and do things with them. We're meant to practice the brain cells in this little thing up here. So so why not challenge it to do something more than doom scrolling all day? A lot of times it's more about creating space for what is already there and letting it express itself than trying to box it into something somewhere that it doesn't want to be. So let me know what you think of this video. If you watched it all the way through, if you did, thank you so much. I'm really glad somebody asked me to make a video about this on Instagram, and yeah, it's definitely something I've wanted to share, but I just didn't really think of it until now. Yeah, check out a free embodied hypnosis embodied flow guide that I made in my link. It comes with a hypnosis, as well as some short essays about how I've been able to channel flow through spirituality. And I wish you so much love and healing as we close out 2024. What a year. Wow, what a year. And I'm so excited for you to go on the journey of your life and continue sailing on this vast ocean of opportunities and explorations. And I will see you very soon. Ciao.